What's up? I'm Scorum, and today we're talking about deviled eggs. I need like an intro right here, like a do 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 boom. Something tough like that. Someone get on that. I mean, that someone's probably gonna be me. But today we're talking about deviled eggs. Let's get it. My grandmother's been making deviled eggs on holidays and get-togethers for basically as long as I can remember. But I was always a picky eater. Like for the longest time, I didn't even try apple pie. Just I don't know why, but so if I wasn't trying apple pie, surely I wasn't trying deviled eggs. But eventually, I tried both of them. But this isn't about apple pie. So as soon as I took a bite into deviled eggs, I understood what I was missing. I was hooked instantly. Basically, after that, it became a race between my brother and I to reach them. Oftentimes, the only eggs that made it to the table were the ones set aside for my mom, protected by my grandmother. I think this is a universal experience when it comes to deviled eggs. Almost every story you see about them, every recipe mentions the serving tray is coming home empty. But what are these accursed appetizers? And have we been using the wrong egg for them for generations? What are deviled eggs? People have been eating eggs for almost the entirety of our history, actually. But the story really starts in the jungles of Southeast Asia. Here, 7 to 10,000 years ago, people first domesticated jungle fowl, the ancestors and cousins of chickens. From here, they spread across the Old World, and actually, they possibly reached the Americas through Polynesian traders before Christopher Columbus. So, how can you be the first person to discover America if chickens got there before you and the people who brought the chickens there, alongside the Vikings and everyone who was living in America before him? But the earliest record of a peppered yolk, that's basically the devil part of the deviled egg, was in the Satyricon, which was written during the first century in Rome. Dishes like this would spread and grow in popularity across Europe, eventually reaching Andalusia in the 13th century. The Andalusian version was slightly different than today, but in my opinion, this constitutes the earliest deviled eggs. The egg would be boiled, then the yolk would be removed and mashed with spices like cloves and marjoram. It would then be set back in the whites, and this entire half would be fried, face down. This style of stuffed eggs would remain popular with ingredients added and removed based on availability in the region through to the 18th century. At this point, a new culinary term became popular in Britain: deviled. Deviled was used for any food that was heavily seasoned with spicy flavors like pepper, mustard, or Tabasco. Yeah, very spicy, I know. Although these may not seem like the most intense heat to us now, many of the spices had just become available for the first time, or at least available to the masses because they became a lot cheaper. Later, across the pond, back in stateside, mayonnaise was added, as recorded in the 1896 Boston Cooking School cookbook. Although mayo would become more accessible in the following decades, it wasn't until after World War II that deviled eggs, made with mayo, truly became an American staple. As well, this time, egg platters became widely available and would grow into the standard gift for brides in the South. Deviled eggs continued to be a staple at parties, get togethers, and the like, with recipes being passed down and changed throughout generations. What am I proposing? What eggs are used, and what I propose. The most common deviled egg is made from hard boiled chicken eggs, which makes sense. Every grocery store, supermarket, and dollar store carries them. Chicken's common animal to have, and almost everyone has had chicken eggs. Because of this ubiquity, they're my baseline and what I'll be comparing the other two eggs to. The first new egg that I'm proposing is quail eggs. Quail are far smaller birds, and as such, they have smaller eggs. I saw people saying they're about 3 to 4 times smaller, but when I weighed them, they turned out to be about 1/6 of the size. They're basically point. They're like a third of an ounce. Chicken eggs are about 2 ounces. But okay, wait. Let me cut in. The eggs I bought at the grocery store are extra large eggs, and I'm pretty sure I haven't actually seen any medium sized eggs sold. Every recipe is Oh, two large eggs. And like the only time I see medium-sized eggs are like from my chickens. So I don't know, like, do stores not sell medium-sized eggs anymore? But nutritionally, most eggs are very similar. But quail eggs do have like slight differences. In 100 grams of egg, quail eggs have about 10 more calories and 1 extra gram of protein and fat. As well, they have much more iron, riboflavin, and B12, but they're also lower in choline. Overall, though, quail eggs are very similar, and most of the difference just comes in the size and the appearance. Quail eggs have a very pretty like speckled pattern, and the inside is actually like this really like nice blue kind of hue. But nutritionally, they're practically the same. The next egg I propose is the ostrich egg. The ostrich is the largest living bird, reaching hundreds of pounds and over 6 feet tall. Rest in peace, the elephant bird, and dude, please, Colossal, when you bring back the MOA, hit me up, DM me on anything, and please let me devil a MOA egg. The MOA was like the biggest bird in history, I think. It was that or the elephant bird, but either way, Colossal bringing them back soon, hopefully, and I think someone needs to devil a MOA egg. But as I was saying, the ostrich egg is the largest egg actually in general. I'm pretty sure, but it's not the largest egg to bird ratio, which is the kiwi, which is like the egg is like insanely large. Like it's like I saw a diagram one time. If this is the kiwi egg, it's not a kiwi egg, but the bird would be like about that much more. So it's kind of crazy. But anyways, back to the ostrich egg. These eggs weigh over 3 pounds and are basically 2 dozen chicken eggs, or over 100 quail eggs. They're 2,000 calories, meaning one meal could just be an ostrich egg. They contain about 235 grams of protein and 100 grams of fat, but weirdly enough, they don't have any sodium. Although this is an insane amount, 4 times the daily recommended amount of protein and double the amount of fat, the amounts by weight are actually really similar to that of a chicken egg. However, I think the real difference is in the eggshell. The shell is extremely thick, and because of this, they've been used for thousands of years for different purposes. Nations throughout the Kalahari Desert have been using the ostrich egg to store water. This allowed the hunter gatherer groups to transport water across the desert. Like they would basically they would like fill it with water and then just bury it in the sand. As well, because of like the thickness and the hardness, it's also been used as jewelry and for ceremonial purposes. Historically, they're actually offered to temples and to the deceased across Greece, Palestine, Mesopotamia, and North Africa. Actually, here, while I'm here, I'll show you the shell. Yeah, you can kind of see like just how thick that is. Like, yeah. To get through it, we actually had to use like a screwdriver, basically just to hammer through it. So, what's my process? Although the size of eggs and thickness of the shells are vastly different, the process for deviling eggs is basically the same. With only thing that you need to change is the amount of ingredients you add and the time you boil it. The foundation of every deviled egg is a hard boiled one. For this part, you can use whatever method you prefer. For chicken eggs, I found that bringing the eggs to a boil and then holding that for 5 minutes, then turning off the heat and leaving it in the water for another 10 minutes before putting the eggs in an ice bath, I found that works the best. So, compared to 15 minutes of cooking chicken eggs, the quail eggs were added directly to boiling water for 4 minutes and then moved straight into the ice bath. At 3 pounds, I was really worried about undercooking the ostrich egg, so I basically boiled it for 2 hours and then left it in the water for maybe 30 minutes. But okay, if I'm being honest, this is where I went wrong. I think 90 minutes to 2 hours of boiling, then immediately cooling it off would have been perfect, but I overcooked it. So the yolk of the ostrich egg was actually like perfect. It was one of the best yolks. But the outside, like so the whites was not white. It was like this kind of gross translucent color. I'll pull up a picture. Don't worry. But the white was overcooked, which basically led it to having this really rubbery texture. but it was weird. It wasn't overcooked all the way through. So like there were points that you could see like a sharp line between the like in the white showing where like this half looks like looks and tastes like silicon, and then this half tastes like egg whites. So it was interesting, but definitely overcooked it. So if you're trying this at home, 90 minutes should be good. And then after they're hard boiled, you shell them, split them in half, and scoop out the yolks. Shelling the quail eggs was actually a lot easier than I thought. I was really like thinking they would just like break instantly, but they're actually sturdy, and so they were really easy. On the other side, back to the ostrich egg, right? I was expecting it to be pretty difficult just to get open. Uh, we first opened it by punching through like the top spot with like a Phillips head, and that worked actually really well. Then we used the flathead as a chisel and just kind of worked our way down. And then once we got it started, we could kind of just pull off chunks. But doing this, it did damage the white a lot, and so it kind of like started ripping chunks out the white. I saw that using vinegar would make it easier to peel, but as you can see, I wanted the shell, so I wanted it like at the full strength. But after that, we mashed the yolks each separately. So like quail eggs were mashed together, chicken eggs were mashed together, and the single ostrich egg yolk was mashed. And then at this point, I added celery and onion to it. And you can basically add whatever ingredients you want. Like I saw people add relish and anchovies. Anchovies like sounds weird to me, but apparently they've been people have been doing it like since like the fried version. So like they've been anchovies have been around for a long time. Basically add whatever like regional family flavors you want. So when I got the recipe, I got it from my grandmother like a baking recipe. You mix the dries, you mix the wets, and then you mix those two together. So at this point, I added mayo, mustard, and pickle juice to a bowl, and I mixed those together. Also, turns out you can just buy pickle juice as a juice and not buy the pickles with it. I didn't know this at the time, so I just bought a jar of dill pickle chips, and I'll come back to that though, because I'll come back to those. But if you don't want to use pickle juice, you can also replace it with vinegar and sugar. Then the dries and wets are mixed together. I found that with the chicken yolks, the texture was a lot runnier, like a lot, way too much mayo. So I just added mayo a little bit at a time for the next two, for the ostrich and the quail, and kind of eyeballed it. But what I realized what I was doing wrong was instead of like using the third of a cup and the half cup, I was actually using the half cup and the whole cup. So I really should have checked that, but I added just way too much mayo for the chicken eggs. But then the yolk mixture is scooped back into the whites and dusted with paprika. So what everyone's here for, the results. Overall, I was really pleased with how all of them turned out. The quail eggs were probably my favorite. They ended up being the best tasting and the best presenting. I found the yolks of the quail eggs were actually a lot richer than the chicken yolks. And the size was interesting because they weren't bite sized. They were like half bite sized. Because of this, they had an aura that they would be served at a bougie upscale party, but also at the same time, they had this palatable whimsicality to them that imagine a mouse with a needle for a sword and an acorn hat. This is the kind of deviled eggs that guy would be eating. The ostrich egg, honestly, it was too big for its own good. The white almost immediately fell apart under the weight of just the whites. Before even the yolk was scooped in, it was already just starting to split. And the large amounts of white made it awkward to get a bite with everything. So like with a normal deviled egg, you take a bite, you get like half of it, and you get all of the flavors. This like you can bite through like an inch at least of whites just to get to the yolk. So the best way to eat it as a deviled egg was by scooping a bit of both with a spoon. Although the yolk, like the quail egg, was richer, the white had this very distinct flavor that didn't match well with being deviled. As much as I was hoping bigger would be better, the quail eggs were my overall favorite. And so, if you're looking to spice up your deviled egg game next time, and able to spend a little bit extra money on the quail eggs, I would absolutely recommend it. And they were just a lot of fun. So, where do I go from here? What am I doing next? The next egg venture was rebuilding the shattered ostrich egg. Literally, we pulled this apart chunk by chunk, and right now I'm just kind of having it sit around. I want to put lights in it, I think, and make like a lamp of sorts. Here you can see all these cracks and the spots where the glue didn't quite fill in because I was missing like just these tiny chunks. And yeah, so I want to make this into a lamp. I think I'm thinking like string lights and just kind of shoving them in there. I think that might be the easiest. But for deviled eggs, I think the only answer is to really keep trying new eggs. The next ones I was thinking would be duck, which apparently I know duck meat has a much gamier and it's a lot fatter than chicken, but I've heard duck eggs also taste a lot different. But also I'm thinking turkey, so a little bit bigger than chicken eggs, but not the ostrich egg size. So turkey, goose, also just new size, I think new flavor. Emu and Rhea eggs, I think would also be good. I saw they were selling Rhea eggs. Rhea eggs are like maybe that big, so they're found bigger than a chicken egg, but still smaller than an ostrich egg. I thought those could be good. And then I saw those at the same store that I got this, but I don't know about emu eggs where I can find those. But that's the next steps and where I'm going from here. Wait, wait. I almost forgot. I did actually like research and cite stuff for this video. This isn't just like I haven't just been talking out of like thin air. I have like a bunch of citations. I'll probably put these in the description. Yeah, these will be down below in the description. So if you want to know where I found all this information, check it out. There's some cool sources. Yeah, so make sure to check it out. But thanks. Wait, bye.